GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS. Sprint Cup kicks off this weekend. Welcome to Brands Hatch, welcome to the UK, welcome to the sunshine. We have had a wonderful week of weather in the UK, and it's carrying on over the course of this weekend, and that means that Brands Hatch looks absolutely fantastic. It's always a well-manicured circuit, but in the sunshine it looks better than ever. And these cars, GT3 cars around the Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch, just look right. It's a proper old-school circuit. Okay, maybe a GT3 car is a wide beast these days, and this former home of the British Grand Prix is not the widest of circuits. It puts the onus on drivers being really creative in terms of overtaking. In terms of qualifying, it puts the onus on traffic management as well. But we're in for a spectacle, no doubt about it. We are about to have free practice. We have pre-qualifying to come later in the day as well. And then qualifying late afternoon at 4:30. David Addison and Joe Osborne trackside. And Joe, what a track it is.
It really is, isn't it? 9 corners, nearly 4 kilometers in length, but there always is a flow to this circuit. And that's one thing the track map doesn't show there, are the ups and the downs. And that really sets this circuit apart from many across the globe.
And it's only when you perhaps go round at a slow pace, whether it's on foot or in a car, that you realise that even things you think are flat have quite a climb to them. The run up towards Hawthorns, for example, is steeper than you think. The left-hander of Sterling's has a discernible bank to it. And the drivers will, in a few moments' time, get themselves to the end of the pit lane. We have 14 newcomers to Sprint Cup this weekend, which is pretty impressive, as also is the fact that we've got a 30-strong grid. So Sprint, for a number of years, never quite got the entries that Endurance did, but 30 for Sprint now really does indicate how important this is to the teams and to the manufacturers that are involved.
Yeah, we're almost at the limit of Brands Hatch, actually. 34 cars is the limit of cars would be allowed round here. There's a quite a complex algorithm, actually, circuit width versus length for how many cars you can have, and then pit lane is equated into that as well. So every single garage, bar one, is full here at Brands Hatch. I expect a lot of action on and off track in pit lane during the races.
And that point you make about being at capacity is why we don't have the Bronze Cup this weekend. It's the one sprint event which doesn't have bronze. The Bronze Cup, therefore, will be over 8 races, 4 events, rather than 5 like everything else for sprint. The fans coming to enjoy the cars, the weather, a good support programme as well of McLaren Trophy, Historic Sports Cars and the Mini 7 Racing Club. The Marshalls have been on post for a while already because the McLarens have had their first free practice session, and very shortly engines are going to fire up with a McLaren representation, as you can see, Garage 59. And also CSA Racing, the Rutronic Racing Porsches there, nearest the camera. And further up the pit lane, the Paradigm competition team, ready to go with 992. That's the Mex Janssen, Maxime Oosten around BMW. Paradigm Darren Lung's team, managed by Simon Traves, who doesn't just race GT cars on occasion, like winning in Dubai, but also races a Formula 1 stock car, Skegness-based driver. There's another of the BMWs, that car being run by WRT, the Al-Manar Racing entry for Al-Faisal Al-Zubar and Jens Klingman.
Yeah, the BMWs have been strong here historically, haven't they? We saw a strong open stint last year from Dries Vanthoor in that car. Looks like a car that shouldn't go well at Brands Hatch due to it being so large, but the aero platform so strong. Especially in Sector 2 here at Brands Hatch, turns 5, 6 and 7. Really important to have a good aero balance. We see the cars lining up on pit exit, waiting for it to go green. Windscreen wiper, interestingly, going on the 30 car there. I think that's on full speed as well. So hopefully, I've had it before with a race car where the steering wheel button just sticks on and you're helpless to turn it off. Your only real options are to cycle the power or take the steering wheel on and off, but it's still going, I can see, as we see the cars flood onto circuit. BMW from Aston Martin, from Mustang, from Audi, from Ferrari, from Mercedes. There's a huge amount of cars out here, and at the moment it's too early to call who's going to be quick, but I do like the look of that WRT BMW.
Yeah, WRT, 7 victories here, not all in BMW, but of course with its very successful Audi history as well. Grasser Racing Teams had 3 wins, Winward Racing has had 1, Tresor Attempto 1, AF Corsa has had 1, and out they go, on track. Still the wiper is going on number 30 BMW, which is the WRT entry of Gustav Bergström and Gilles Stadsbader. Gilles Stadsbader at the wheel of the car at the moment. There you can see Thierry Vermeulen in the Verstappen.com Ferrari. So Aston Martin for endurance, but this weekend for Emil Frey Racing. He and Chris Lallam are in a Ferrari, a car that Vermeulen knows better than the Aston. And Chris Lallam, who's coming out of Radicals, but with a tremendous pedigree in esports, just learning about real-world GT3 cars all the time, and he's got another one to adapt to.
Yeah, Brands Hatch is one of the early circuits, especially on iRacing, one of the large sim-based platforms. So he would have done a million laps around here, but then when you get to see it in the flesh for the first time, the nuances from sim to real life are surprisingly different. And one thing simulators always struggle to replicate are the undulations. And I'm not scared of heights, but I remember my first lap around Brands Hatch, as you dive down Paddock Hill, there's 10 meters of elevation change, nearly 10 degrees of gradient. It feels so steep, and that will be a first, wow, this is real. That will be waking him up nicely on this Saturday morning, that's for sure.
Equally scary is trying to run up the hill the other side, because that is jolly steep. This element, you really do plunge downhill, you kind of fall downhill, and then it's this steep climb. It just starts to plateau a touch as you get up towards Druids. Now, number 69 Ferrari is Chris Lallam at the wheel. Thierry Vermeulen, Chris Lallam, the two drivers. Confirmation on the timing screen that it's Chris Lallam driving the car. There, one of the Rutronic Porsches, 97, is Luc Hartog at the wheel of the car, the very rapid Dutch driver. A car running in silver. Luc Hartog shares with newcomer Ishan Pieris, who's raced in GT World Challenge Asia, but not Europe. So he's really been thrown in at the deep end, because in terms of a circuit to get used to, Brands Hatch is quite a tough one.
Yeah, there's just no testing, so none of these cars would have tested on this circuit. The last time these cars would have been on track was here last year. So that really shows how difficult it is as a new driver to Brands Hatch to get up to speed. And yes, you've got the simulator, yes, you've got onboard, yes, you can do a track walk. Until you get out there and feel the car, feel the grip, and these curbs and bumps, you can see the car riding over the bump there through Westfield, turn number 6. It can really unsettle you as a driver to know where you're going. A lot of blind entries. And then look at the traffic here. You're on a lap, he's just done a purple sector 1, and then suddenly you're held up and you've lost 2 or 3 seconds by a Mustang, which seems to block at least half the circuit with the width of the car, and he's able just to get down the inside into the last corner here at Clearways to get another lap. You can see the live tracker there as he leaves here. And this is what's called the pit straight, but it's not straight. It just keeps curving and curving. You're already worried about setting the car up to turn 1.
And it's also banked as well. You sort of fall towards the pit wall, that adverse camber. Luc Hartog at the wheel. I don't think he's raced at Brands Hatch before either, so he's another driver with a learning curve to do. This session is an hour long. What do the teams try and achieve? Are we talking about getting drivers used to the circuit? Are we talking about bedding in parts or scrubbing in tyres, or are we talking about getting a setup for qualifying, or all of the above?
Yeah, it really depends on the team. The top teams would have got all their housework out the way, so scrubbing in the, bedding the brakes in, making sure the system checks are done, and then you're just straight into balance check, and that's basically the driver driving the car out the box and going, this is what I've got, and this is what I need to be faster. That's the question I love being asked as a driver from the engineer. What's the thing you need to go faster? Not what's the car doing. That's just a boring story that can go into 25 minutes of debrief. What's the one thing you need to go faster? And that's the initial feeling from the car as you go through these fast corners. Have I got too much front grip, too much rear grip? What have I got? And that car's got not enough rear grip, for example. So CSA there, maybe looking at a bit of a wing change, try and put a bit more rear grip on the car, maybe stiffening that rear spring, just trying to read the car, what it needs at a given moment in time.
It's got James Kell at the wheel, and James Kell has got a track limit warning because it was a slide that put him over the curb at Graham Hill Bend. But if you're off the track, you're off the track. The warning system, the sensors that are there don't actually care how you got there. If you're wide, you're wide. So whether you're punted there, whether you make a mistake, whether the car has a problem and you run wide, doesn't really matter. You still get the warning. And James Kell breaks the timing beam. Don't forget, he went really well in endurance at Paul Ricard. That lap is a 1:25.154. Alex Arca's Audi is the fastest at the moment, a 1:24.2. Chris Lallam, we were talking about earlier on, the esports star, up to 3rd fastest. But at the moment, lots and lots of new to Brands Hatch names getting in some mileage. Number 58 McLaren is Louis Pret, and he's running on track behind the aforementioned James Kell.
Yeah, we almost have a two-stage practice session here, don't we? An hour long, like you said, but the first 30 minutes is exclusively for the silver drivers, trying to afford them a bit more space and time out there. So all the gold drivers are not allowed out on track at the moment, and that's why we at the moment only have 20 cars. So there's still another 10, there's still another third, 33% more cars are going to make their way onto track. So if you think it looks busy now, just you wait. In another 23 minutes and 48 seconds, it's about to get a whole heap busier.
Certainly puts the emphasis on the teams for qualifying, doesn't it, and trying to manage the circuit, because a GT3 grid these days is so close. We talked about it at Paul Ricard. You're talking thousandths these days to separate cars. Well, around here, where overtaking is a challenge, it really does put the pressure on the drivers to be as far up the grid as they possibly can be. This is the Barwell-run Lamborghini for Northwich driver Hugo Cook. Northwich is near Alton Park, just to put it geographically, and it is Sandy Mitchell sharing. Good to see Sandy in a competitive car within Sprint, and Hugo Cook, who's done a lot of racing miles in a short space of time.
Yeah, he's really come up to speed, hasn't he? Driven quite a few different cars now and has ended up in this Barwell Lambo. Strong car, strong team, so I think we're going to see a big improvement from him over the season. Just running with a proper team, I would say, just means that as a driver you've got less to worry about. The platform's better underneath you, and it gives you confidence in turn, and that's exactly what you need to perform at this level. The most competitive GT championship in the world, in my opinion.
So he's coming out of Westfield is Hugo Cook. His father Peter, you might recall, was a GT Porsche racer 20 years ago-ish. Alex Archer, who was the fastest, has pitted. Max Ooston has gone second in the Paradigm BMW as Hugo Cook kicks up the dirt coming out of Stirling's. That bank left that brings you down towards Clearways, back onto the so-called Indy circuit, because back in 1978 the American IndyCar series came to Brands Hatch, ran on the short circuit, so it was renamed from the club circuit to the Indy circuit, and up towards paddock goes Hugo Cook. This is what he did at Stirling's.
Yeah, easy to do. Reprofiled the curb a couple of years ago to make it easier, but now the driver's getting greedier, and look at the witness marks. There's no grass where that dirt is getting kicked up, and that's going to be a theme of the weekend. The cars are going to be running over dirty parts of the track, so drivers are going to have to acclimatise as we watch the BMW through paddock. Look at the deflection on the splitter into the bumper, into the gravel trap. That was really, really on the limit and slightly beyond. Track limit rules are European spec this weekend, so as long as you've got one wheel touching the white line on the circuit, you're good. The British rules of where the sensors are, slightly confusing, are redundant this weekend, which I'm proud to say.
That was Maxime Oostin you were looking at going wide at paddock. 52 Ferrari is Jeff Machiels, coming up now towards the timing line in the AF Corsa Ferrari, and he shares the car with another newcomer, Marcos Siebert, Italian Formula 4 champion, LMP3 champion in the European Le Mans Series. Who else is out there? James Kell, we touched on earlier on. He's sixth fastest at the moment, having improved last time, but he's found himself stuck behind the Corvette, I think, hasn't he? The Stella Chevrolet of Jesse Salmonautio at the wheel at the moment. Stella Motorsport with Mathis Lismon as the second driver of that car. Salmonautio has been a busy driver of late, what with Asian Le Mans, and we've seen him racing in this endurance equivalent in the past. That is the Louis Pret driven McLaren at Garage 59, and Chris Lullum for Emile Frey Racing, number 69 Ferrari, now to top of the times.
Yeah, big snap there from the McLaren. That looked horrible as it turned in. There is a bump right at the end of the brake zone to Clearways, but that really pitched the car well. Great job by Lullum. Is that some of the sim experience we were talking about? It definitely won't hurt as we see a driver change there going on. This is all good practice for the race. Remember, they have to change all 4 tyres, but the driver changes at the same time, and those teams are saying a good tyre change now is down to 17 seconds, and the Porsche is one of the best cars for the tyre change. Here's this snap. So look at this bump as we turn in. Bang. I think the rear tyres were actually clear of the tarmac. They were in the air, which isn't normally the best way to generate grip if they're not in contact. But that's from the resurfacing of the Indy circuit to the GP, and there's just not been this sort of grading that you'd normally see there. So that's going to be a huge setup problem for the teams, where they're going to want to soften the rear to help that, but then out the back, that's going to give you less stability. So it's a real trade-off there on a setup. That's pretty extreme.
Track limit warnings largely coming at Graham Hill Bend at the moment, and as there, Alex Archer's Audi sets off down the pit lane. That's going to rejoin the session. Now he shares it with Ezequiel Perez Compact. We'll see whether they've done a driver change, and the answer is no. Alex Archer's name stays on the timing screen as the man behind the wheel of the car. Others get themselves ready. We've had the first 10 minutes or so. Leonardo Moncini, you can see there. And he will be another driver for the Trezzo Attempto squad getting on board in due course.
Interesting with track limits, you're really only going to see any warnings on the Indy part of the circuit, turns 1, 2 and 3, because the old school nature of the GP, there isn't any runoff. So if you run wide, it's either dirt, grass or gravel, which won't help your lap time. Windscreen wiper still going on the number 30 car. The driver won't be noticing it, but I'm surprised the team have allowed to stay out, because that motor must be overheating. Imagine there's so much friction on that blade, sometimes even rips off the tear off that's on front of these windscreens, and they're over €1,000. So team are obviously happy with that, but that, yeah, great durability on the windscreen wiper of an M4 GT3 car.
You know, it's not in my nature to be picky, but Alex Arca is the one driver who has had a track limit warning on the Grand Prix circuit, and that's turn 7, which is Sheen Curve, where you can both be greedy on the inside with the curb as well as run wide on the outside.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. The inside has been redone. There was the bollard there, wasn't there, last year they were trying to use. I always used to argue my case, obviously, because you may be picky and I might be argumentative, but my argument there was I'm not touching the surface because I'm in the air. If you use enough curb at the apex of T7, I'm not touching it. So what's illegal? My wheels aren't touching it. They're not touching the track either, granted, but I'm not damaging anything. What's it to you, sort of thing?
How did that play out for you?
Yeah, not well.
No, okay, fine. Moving on. Chris Lalo into the pit lane, and the number 30 BMW, Gilles Stoutsbader's car, 6th fastest. He's got the cleanest windscreen of anybody, but 6th fastest. And as Joe rightly says, that motor is thinking, please pit, turn me off, because I'm had enough of this. Working overtime as he comes now through Sheen Curve.
Yeah, and that's that apex I was talking about that he clattered over the top of. And yeah, it's greedy to cut the inside. Looks like they're about to do a drive change. So will they address the windscreen wiper? My guess would be it's a button issue on the steering wheel, maybe a swap of steering wheels. He boxes. As long as you're in over the dotted line, you're okay. Then the pit limit starts there, 40 kilometers an hour. Actually, they're pulling it in. I think this will be for a noise test. We saw a message from race control. Because you're not allowed to fire the engines up much before 9 o'clock here at Brands Hatch, they won't have had time to do a noise check, so they're having to do it live in the session. So they will rev the car, the marshal holding it there well, because it shows you how tight the pit entry is. But yeah, the noise check cleared and off they go, and the wiper still going on that BMW.
So WRT will try and sort that out, no doubt.
Yeah, just going to see as they stop the car, are they going to address anything in particular? So wiper does turn off as he turns the ignition off, and that was a full ignition off. You can see the headlights drop off there. Looks like they're going to just skate the car around. That's normal procedure on these sprint weekends. Just mechanic as well making his mark there of where he wants the car to stop. Just giving the wheels a quick check just to make sure they're still tight. Doesn't look like they're going to take them off. Most teams will just run one set of tyres in this first session. That's quite normal as we see the 99 Audi, the Attempto racing car there. Currently P2 going on board, down Pilgrim's Drop into Hawthorne's Bend. Alex Acker here at the board. This is what I'm talking about, track limits. There's just curb and then grass. It's the best way to police it. Through Westfield, lots of curb on the inside, rides it well. Now down another dip, Dingledale up the rise into Sheen. This is where you can use lots of apex curb. Nice and legal, no curb on the exit. Short break here at Stirling, gets it on, a bit of oversteer there onto the grass, and that's why you do find here at Brands Hatch you turn right a lot and not left, and that is just the nature of the circuit. So sometimes you get a balance here where it's very good through rights but bad through left, because the rear right tyre just is at a completely different temperature, so you end up running a bit of a NASCAR stagger into Paddock Hill. This is where we get the biggest drop of the lap. The car bottoms out as it reaches the bottom. It's no bottom, just slightly maybe from the bodywork into Druids. Best overtaking spot of the lap. Second gear, V the corner off with your line brake in. Hard throttle on the way out. Second gear over to the right. Short break here at Graham Hill. Get it into the apex. This is the track limit hotspot. You can see why it invites you out there since it was reprofiled in '93. It's a very different feel through through there into Surtees, uphill, tuck it in, open the wheel up, and off you go. This is the longest full throttle spot of the lap now. It's a slight kink here, easy flat, under the bridge. Sometimes it feels like you have to duck, that bridge is so low. And again, another compression, and this is where we picked up last lap. So you've just ridden a lap of Brands Hatch in 1 minute, 23.7 seconds with Acker. That's how fast and furious it is. And now we're getting held up by a BMW in front. That's the Paradine car. And you can suddenly see that, where'd you get round? That's the problem.
And that last lap, when we went across the timing line, put him at the top of the times again. That last lap was a 1:23.629, but now he's absolutely stuck. So what was a really good start to the lap has sort of kind of unravelled here.
Yeah, and you've seen him back off. So he's pushed that BMW all the way into the last corner, and now he's generating his gap. He'll be checking his mirrors to make sure he's got space. He's done a very good job there. Look, BMW just out the side window there. We probably have 3.5, 4 second gap to him. So the team, if they're on it, will be telling him what that BMW did on his last lap to try and help him find some space. And on his last lap, he only did a 1:32, and now this is an outboard shot of that car from an earlier lap, kicking up the dirt on the exit of Sheen Curve. And you can just see that dirt then gets drawn onto the circuit and stuck there, and it's not optimal for the car there because it actually has compromised his entry line into Stirling. And then does he have another go on the exit of Stirling? No, you can just see the car bouncing around, and that's the setup compromise I was talking about earlier. Very bumpy circuit out the back here.
But a great lap it is, as their number 112 McLaren gets set for another stint. Arthur Rougier to take over potentially from James Kell. They had a great run at Paul Ricard, of course, and will be certainly ones to watch, I think, once they are back on track. Now let's go to the pit lane. Bryn Lucas is there for us, and Gilles Stoudsbader is with him.
Well, Gilles, you and your teammate both going out for the first time around Brands Hatch on the GP circuit. What was it like for you? Any setup changes? What are your thoughts?
Well, to be fair, the track is really nice. Like the layout, something I've never seen before, and I only did 8 laps, but pretty nice track and fast as well. So yeah, looking forward to the weekend. And for me, the car honestly felt quite good. For the first session being, so that's positive, and then yeah, let's see what the weekend brings.
Thank you.
In other good news, the wiper has stopped. So the BMW now back on track, number 30. It is going to be hustled along now by Gustav Bergström, and it looks like they've been able to sort out the rather overzealous wiper in that pit stop, which is a relief to the component, if nobody else.
Yeah, exactly that. The slow-mo really showing off the undulation there at Paddock Hill. And if you want a racetrack to come and watch, this is one of the best ones to come to, in my opinion. You can wander around the back as we look at another wonderful sight here. The Ford Mustang went well at Ricard, didn't it, at times, but didn't really put together a strong race in total. So they'll be hoping for better here. Great camera view here. You can see the driver working right at the wheel. Doesn't look particularly confident with the wheel. Why do I say that? There's lots of small movements all the time with that steering wheel, trying to feel the grip. When you feel on top of the car, you're able to just chuck the car in one steering lock and hold it there, and almost a constant radius. Let's watch through here and just see those micro adjustments, just trying to feel where the grip is. And normally with a front engine car, that's a better feeling because you have the weight over that front axle. You're able to commit in. Aero balance of the Mustang very good from what the drivers are saying. It's a good lap so far, but it's not going to challenge top.
Romain Andriolo is the slowest at the moment, but it's the first time he has been to Brands Hatch. It's the first time he's driven the Mustang. It's his first time out in Sprint Cup. He's new to GT racing this year. You know, there's an awful lot to get your head around here.
Yeah, and it's not to be sniffed at, and that's just going to need laps. And each lap he does, he'll learn something. That might be a braking point, might be a throttle point, even gears this early on. You won't be 100% sure which gear to be in at what point, so you'll be experimenting. And that just takes so much mental capacity that you suddenly start to get a bit stressed and a bit worried about things as well. So, yeah, that is a huge undertaking, that's for sure.
Alex Arca back out in number 99, as we had seen, fastest so far. By 1/10 of a second, and this is 992 BMW going very, very wide indeed at the bottom of Paddock Hill. Maxime Ouston on the beach.
Yeah, we saw the car before we came to the shot. The tyre wall was all white and chalky, so there was some witness there. But yeah, you can see the splitter kicking through, all those stones flicking around, and the car's coated in dust now. But it does bring a genuine problem, especially the brakes. The calipers sit so close to the inside of the rim. There's very little tolerance. You sometimes can get a stone stuck in between those two components, and with the wheel rotating around the fixed caliper, it can actually score a gouge all the way through the rim. So that can be a problem as we go looking at the 35 Aston Martin about to start a new lap, and we go on board on that Aston Martin. It'd be interesting just to see the differences on the steering input here on all of the cars. Obviously balanced performance, making these cars all do the same lap times, but they don't do it in the same way.
Mathieu Villagomez is the driver at the wheel, last year's French GT4 champion. And in number 35, which, as Joe said, is the Aston Martin, it's out of the Valkenhorst Motorsports stable, and it is Villagomez and Enrique Chaves, the Portuguese gun driver, as the partnership there. So the Aston just taking a step forward from last year. You've got the cars also operated by Comtu as well as Valkenhorst, so good Aston Martin representation. Left-hand drive car, because most of the circuits are clockwise, and therefore you get a bit more vision by sitting on that side of the car looking across.
Yeah, it was only Bentley, wasn't it, that went right-hand drive when they made their GT3 cars. Homage to their British past, but Aston Martin and McLaren always stick on the left. A lot of information for the driver on board here. Yes, we have a Lamborghini on our front bumper, but just looking in the cockpit, you've got rear view camera there. You can just see those light clusters just slightly above that rear view camera. They're his ABS and TC lights. You can see them just coming on either under braking or throttle, and that's just telling the driver how much ABS and TC he's using, and he can adjust. And you've got two screens in the center there. The top one is a delta time, so at the moment he's 1.6 seconds slower, it looks like, than his best. That's going to fall away as he gets held up by that Lamborghini, and the blue one below it is their pit lane timer. So when they're in the pits, they'll be making sure the speed-wise they're okay. And again, just really emphasise, how much information these drivers have to take on board around a very busy track already.
Clear road briefly up towards Druids, stands on the brakes. Meanwhile, on the Grand Prix loop, looking there at the number 78 Hugo Cook Lamborghini, coming now out of Sheen Curve. The road tilts you left through Stirling's. This is the car that he shares with Sandy Mitchell, who is the Lamborghini factory driver. So it makes sense, doesn't it, to put Hugo Cook in for as long as possible. Yeah, Sandy will want some laps, but he knows the car inside out. That said, Hugo Cook, of course, has been racing in British GT already this year, and he raced Lamborghinis on and off last season. But Sandy Mitchell specialises in the Huracan, and Hugo Cook pounds up towards Paddock, turns into the right, the road's about to drop away.
Yeah, and obviously that's almost the fortunate benefit for Hugo being a silver-rated driver. He's got this first 30 minutes all to himself exclusively. The negative for that is that the fuel load will be at its highest. They can't refuel during the session, so he would have inherited a pretty much full tank of fuel. So Sandy will get in. The tyres will be more warm, but the fuel load will be off. So there'll be a bit of a balancing out there of what car would be faster. I expect Sandy to probably find a couple of tenths as that fuel load comes off over Hugo Cook, though.
Just looking at the dash, up at Druids, he was down in first gear. Is that because it's a really tight hairpin, or is that so he's got good drive out of the corner?
A bit of both.
Right.
And, yeah, sometimes you'll run second gear through these tighter corners when you're happy with the car, but sometimes you've really got to stop the car, get it down the gear, then rotate the car. And obviously no turbo in this car. Yes, you've got 10 cylinders pushing you forward, but you do tend to go a gear lower in non-turbo cars as well. You just don't have that torque on demand that the turbo cars are afforded, and running third gear through there, that's standard there, and you can hear the engine singing along up to fourth. Sometimes just need fifth, even if it's for 20 metres, and then back down the third gear again. And again, you can run four through clearways on a quali lap when you're low on fuel, you're 100 kilos lighter, the new tyre giving you a second and a half around here at Brands Hatch. So yeah, we're talking about drivers learning. At the moment, they're learning really a race trim car, and that will all change again in qualifying when it's a quali trim car.
And it won't be long before the road gets busy, because the cars that are in the Pro Cup are getting ready to join in. And so those drivers that haven't yet been in from, for example, Silver, are going to find a very busy racetrack indeed while they try and learn. So again, the teams have to be savvy about who they put out and when, if they're in the Silver Cup. Yeah,
you can see Vince Abreu there getting ready. Rivera already in the car. And yeah, you see some pensive-looking drivers, right smile from Vince there, but it's one of those daunting tracks. It isn't a track where you can overdrive, find the limit, and then pull it back a bit. You need to build up to it, and it's seriously fast. Look at the speeds here. That 30 car with the wiper, obviously aero working well on the wiper. 249 kilometers an hour from Zubair, 248, and another BMW. Then the Audis, 247, 46, and then an Aston Martin. So these top speeds are really pushing on, and this is where they get to the VMAX at the end of this straight. It's a long straight, but this downhill section also helps the car push through that aero balance as it's getting up to 250 k's.
And then another climb up through Hawthorns, and then you turn through Westfield, and then there's another steep climb the other side of that up towards Dingle Dell. So it's a busy circuit for the drivers, and the undulation change is one of the reasons that they really like coming here.
Yeah, it just adds such a dynamic to the car, and it loads in a different way, and especially when it's a positive load. The car feels great because it's given so much more grip. The car that wasn't given more grip at that point, the 69 Ferrari there, just dipping a wheel in the gravel. And these drivers find the limits, but that would be a track limit. So, for example, in qualifying, that would be lap deleted, even if it was a good lap, as we see the 30 car box once more.
Kind of self-penalising, though, isn't it? If you're in the gravel, you're automatically going to lose a little bit of pace. As, yes, you're right, down the pit road comes Gustav Bergstrom's BMW. That was Chris Lullum going through the gravel bed. 58 McLaren, it was Louis Pret, it still is. He's up to third fastest, Louis Pret, quietly getting on with the job here for Garage 59, and he's only half a second away from Alex Arca. Interesting that for the moment, it's what you might call the venerable Audi that's the fastest.
Yeah, and interestingly, Louis Pret, big slide there, he's the fastest through Paddock Hill. So turn one, where we saw that Ferrari go in the gravel, he's 5 kilometers an hour quicker than anyone else out there. So McLaren obviously feeling good. They're boxing. They're going to probably get Adam Smalley in, who will be able to drive the car in 2 minutes 48. So really good job by Louis Pret. Never been to Brands Hatch before, so he's learning it. But one corner he's definitely mastered is Paddock Hill, 166 kilometers an hour through there. And I always say to the viewers listening on, try and do 166 kilometers an hour through a corner in your road car and see how that feels. And this is that corner in slow-mo. You can see the energy. Look at that front corner. The splitter starting to bottom out. You can see the score marks in the tarmac from cars doing that. Does he keep it legal? Yes, he keeps one tyre touching that white line, uses lots of the exit curb, but the line looked perfect there from Louis Pret.
And we saw him pit, and there is the car. So Louis Pret to relay Adam Smalley, give him some mileage. Carrera Cup GB champion 2 years ago, Adam, from Poulton-le-Fylde in Lancashire. And the pit lane is going to get pretty busy soon in terms of cars coming in for a driver change and cars going out for their first activity of the day. See there, further down the pit lane, the drivers getting togged up. Arthur Rougier for CSA Racing with his retro-style helmet. Good to go. Clearly a big fan of McLaren with the retro lettering on the helmet, and he will take over from James Kell. So they've kind of split the session in two, haven't they? You did the first half, then Arthur Rougier did the second.
Yep, you can't learn much with the car sat in pit lane, so they're just trying to do it on a one-stop strategy, aren't they, to make sure all the green flag running is on track, not in the pit lane. But yeah, you can see the Speedy Kiwi there, the original McLaren cars logo. And talking of original McLaren people, there's Rob Bell, former factory driver, now sporting director at McLaren, talking to Louis Pret, talking about what a big slide. We saw it on TV. Cool story, bro. And yeah, Louis, all smiles there. Third overall, fastest McLaren. He'll be super happy. But yeah, a bit of a debrief with Rob, who would have raced here many, many times. So he'll be able to have a proper debrief and work on the car even further.
Yeah, I think Rob started racing here in black and white, didn't he? He was racing so long ago. But yeah, with his new role. And remember that if you go back to what was then called the Blancpain Endurance Series, Rob, a champion of that as well, but very much part of the McLaren family. And keeping an eye on not just GT3 cars, but also the McLaren Trophy that kicks off this weekend. Another super slow-mo at paddock of number 19, the Grasser Racing Team, Baptiste Moulin, Ivan Ekelchik Lamborghini, and that's Ivan Ekelchik at the wheel of the car. Told you the pit lane was getting busy. Now you can see just how crowded a house that can become.
Yeah, and this is with cars at 45 degrees, so they're taking up less real estate than they would, and starting to give us a slight issue as we get into racing. So any car can leave pit lane now. We've ticked under 30 minutes, and you can see that McLaren of, is that going to be Kirchhoff, I think, probably taking over from Benji Goeth, the sister car to Louis Pret and Adam Smalley. Yes, it is Kirchhoff. Sandy Mitchell in the Lamborghini. Leclerc, they're leaving as well. So some pretty fast names about to hit this Branch Hatch circuit.
The session is now for all drivers' categories confirmed from race control, so that puts the pros and the golds out on track. It's going to be very busy. It's also now going to be fascinating to see where Alex Arca's 1:23.6 second lap actually stands him in another half an hour's time once we get to the end of this session. I know this isn't about being quick necessarily, it's about dialing in your driver or all the other things that a round plan will contain, but it will be interesting nonetheless to see where he is. We've just had an absolute best final sector from Ivan Ekocic with the Grasser Lamborghini. The lap was an improved 1:24.657. Out goes a car that won here last year, number 48, Lucas Auer. Remember that he and Mauro Engel were victorious here last year. They also won the Sprint Cup Championship, and Mauro Engel a triple winner around Brands Hatch. Lucas Auer and Mauro Engel continued that successful partnership from last year.
Yeah, they were very strong at Paul Ricard, weren't they, across the whole race there. Lap time-wise, just touching back on that, 1:23.6 at the moment. The lap record here is a 1:22.5, so we're 1.1 seconds off that race time. The qualifying lap time is another 1.2 seconds quicker than that. So to reiterate my race trim versus quali trim sentiment, 1.2 seconds between those records, and we're still 1 second off that slower race lap record as well. So I don't think we'll see much improvement. I think we might just see maybe low 1:23s. A 23.2 is probably going to be my guess for the fastest at the end of this session.
But effectively, this is testing, isn't it? You made the point early on that there isn't pre-event testing for these cars here. So this is it. This is the first time they've hit the track. There's a lot to get through, not just cycling through drivers, but everything else within that run plan. So gradually, the team's working towards getting a quick car driver combination for qualifying.
Yeah, and the problem is here, because there's so little runoff, if you make an error which leads you going to the barrier, it's normally quite a big accident, which is going to be hard to repair the car. Pre-qualifying, our next session is at 11:55, so we're less than 2 hours away from that. Then qualifying this afternoon at 4:10. So if you made one mistake now, you could effectively ruin your whole race weekend by missing qualifying due to damage, and that isn't acceptable. So the driver has to bear that in mind and find the happy medium of being fast but not being in the barrier.
You sound as though you're an authority on a big accident here. Surely not.
I've never had a huge one here. I've had minor bodywork issues with some structural damage, but we see Van der Linde there going fastest, 10th quicker, so down to a 1:23.5 purple. Sector 3, that car had a very good Paul Ricard as well, didn't it?
He did indeed, winning outright. That was the first flying lap from Kelvin van der Linde, effectively. So he did an out lap, a start-up lap, bang, straight on it. So that illustrates that WRT are going to come out fighting. They are looking very, very strong already, and Kelvin van der Linde goes to the top of the time straight off from Ezequiel Perez Compang, who's now taken over number 99. Thierry Vermeulen has taken over from Chris Lullen, and number 63 is the Lucas Engschler, currently Jordan Pepper Lamborghini, and that is fourth now. There's going to be a real shuffle of the order. For what that proves, it's really the times that we'll be looking at.
Yeah, but this happens in the race, doesn't it? We have two drivers, so it's almost, we've had stint 1, this is now stint 2. You can see Van der Linde getting held up by the AF52 Ferrari, gets to the inside, the Ferrari lift off the throttle very kindly. You can see it tuck in on that rear screen. See that big green arrow? That's a Bosch system actually developed from a road car that picks up a radar, so you can see it went orange because the closing speed went up. So as a driver now, you've got, again, more information, but it means you can kind of look forward. And I only used to look in my rearview camera if I saw something flash, because it meant I was either about to get hit or I was about to turn in on someone. But great technology there from race car to road car.
Shows how much the driver has to adapt to, because Kelvin van der Linde is trying to get himself around Brands Hatch. He's got all the dials and colours and buttons and numbers and everything else, and then that flashing away to almost distract. Lucas Auer, in the meantime, did a slightly more modest start-up lap. Number 48, Mercedes, 17th in the times, but the BMW, even though Kelvin van der Linde had gone fastest, he was still weaving a little bit on his way out of Stirling's, getting warmth into the tyres. So there's a lot more to come yet from the pros that have only just gone out.
Yeah, and they're still trying to find track space. As we look at Auer here, he's actually gaining quite quickly on the 10 car. In front of him, the other Mercedes from Boots and VDS. So you have to make a decision here. I think he'll finish the lap, even though he runs way, way wide. That's the widest we've seen so far. Look at that dust cloud looming in the background behind of him. But yeah, you get to a point where you've got to back out to find some space to try and go fastest.
Jordan Pepper is now fastest then, number 63 Lambo. So the GRT Grasso Racing Team car of Jordan Pepper, the South African, takes it away from a South African. Here is in replay Lucas Auer coming into Sterling's. A 1:23.4 is the best time now from Jordan Pepper. And here is Lucas Auer in super slow-mo going way, way, way wide. And he's just got one wheel touching the white line, but he's dug the trench behind the curb a bit more.
Yeah, he really has. And you can see the diffuser in action there, can't you? The tyre, of course, kicks up some dust, but then the diffuser is like a hoover and just sucks it up and throws it into the air. And that's why we're able to get so much aggregate in this shot. That's a great, great shot. It'd be a good guess where that picture is taken, wouldn't it? The harder read there. But yeah, great lap from Jordan Pepper down to a 23.4. So slight improvement again. And we're seeing a lot of manufacturers, aren't we, covered in the top 9 cars. We've got nearly every manufacturer covered there.
And the top 19 are currently covered by just under a second. That's nuts, isn't it? I mean, I know Brands is the shortest lap on the calendar, but even so, it's a challenging lap. And to have so many cars, 19 within a second of each other, is very impressive.
Yeah, it really is. And actually, the top 4 are less than 3/10, so that is super competitive there. And you can see how little rain we've actually had in the UK, because every corner exit is dry dust, as we see. First beach trip of the weekend, Paddock Hill, very easily done. Kobe Powell's there in the Com2U. Aston Martin is beached, tried to get going. You can see the rear tyres spin up. That's going to go to full course yellow very quickly, I would imagine, and possibly red flag.
Yeah, I would have thought the session's going to have to be stopped to get that out of the way. And the session is, for the moment, under yellows. But yeah, that car, if anybody else goes wide, they're going to clobber that, aren't they? So Niels Fitich, who is the race director, will make the call. Red flag is indeed shown, and the session is stopped, but the clock will carry on ticking. Now, this is the real frustration, isn't it, for the pro drivers, because they didn't get much mileage anyway, and it's now going to be gobbled up by, might only be 5, 6, 7 minutes, but it's time they wanted on track.
Yeah, you can see that car properly beached. So frustrating as a driver, you always go into the gravel. Now, I can get out of this. It's definitely, I'm going to get lucky. And then you go and appreciate how flat the floor is of these cars. And that's why they're beached. The tyres just haven't got any grip because they're not even touching the gravel in places. I think you're right to be a quick recovery as soon as the cars are under control, which they already are. No more cars are coming out of the last corner. That telehandler that we saw in the background can go and get on and just simply plug into the roof. All these cars now have holes in the roof panel straight into the roll cage, and then those telehandlers can just plug straight in, so no more sort of straps around the wheels and the cars swinging around there. So the marshal's already getting out. They'll try and give it a push out of due course, but I'll be surprised if they're going to get that to budge a single inch or millimetre and potentially get sprayed in gravel. So I think we'd be better just to get the telehandler there, put it onto the circuit, get the driver to drive back slowly off the racing line, and you've just seen the world's most expensive dust machine there in action.
Yeah, you were talking about hoovers earlier on. That's the sort of opposite of it, isn't it? The AMR drivers looking on. 21 is the car in the gravel bed, the Com2U car. That's the Kobe Powell's Jamie Day entry. Kobe Powell's at the wheel. Jamie Day looks on. So it shouldn't take too long to get the car out of the gravel, but then it's got to be brought back to the pit lane. There is, of course, the back door here, and that hopefully will enable things to get back up and running fairly swiftly.
Yeah, I can see out the commentary window the telehandler's already there. I think they're just going to try and pull it out forwards, actually, not even lift the car. So this could be very quick. The big problem here is all that gravel that's in that car is going to get shaken out somewhere. And you get out there as a driver after a red flag, and you have to have another wrecking lap to see where all that gravel is sat, because it really changes it. You can see driver display panel there flashing red, so the cars have to get down to 80 kilometers an hour and they will just return back. One of the few circuits where actually even at 80k you'll still be learning stuff, you can take it all in. Track walk's great, but even at this speed you're able to see how the car maybe reacts over a curb and just get into the flow of it. Darren Lung there, Paradine owner, talking to the drivers, not just a driver anymore by the looks of it, driver, coach, team owner. What else can that man do?
And a very proud BRDC member, as you can see off his jacket. Darren Lung, winner last week at Silverstone with Dan Harper of the British GT 3-hour race, the Silverstone 500. Yeah, with a separate programme for him just as a driver for a different team in the World Endurance Championship. Considering he's not been racing for that long, he's done a huge amount in a short space of time. Right, there is the Aston being retrieved. And Kobe Powell's former rallycrosser has plonked it in the gravel. His co-driver is Jamie Day. He may well have a thought or two on all of this. He can share those thoughts in the pit lane with Bryn Lucas.
Well, Jamie, it's never good to see your car out in the gravel. Kobe's not been around here before, so maybe that's part of the reason. What can you tell us from what you know? Any damage to the car?
No damage to the car, I don't think. Just, first time for Kobe here, so exploring the limits like any driver. Just a little mistake, but I think we'll learn from it. We'll come back in the next session, but it's all about the learning process around here. You've got so many short sessions, so it's all about finding the limit as quick as possible.
He's found the limit, and he can get back on with it. Thanks, Kobe.
So Kobe Powell's to have, thankfully, an undamaging spin, but the car is out of the gravel. The gravel is being swept. It looked as though, looking at the tyre marks, he just got it wrong at paddock and slithered in there rather than it being a high speed off.
Yeah, you turn in slightly too late there and you're off the rubber onto the dirt and the dust that's being laid by everyone, and suddenly you've got 50% less grip and the rear of the car feels like a shopping trolley and just comes round on you and there's just no room to do anything. The best thing you can sometimes try and do is almost do a full 360 and at least approach the gravel trap forwards and use that momentum. As you can see, all of that dust and gravel getting dropped out. I'd expect them to hit the brakes a couple of times and try and get rid of some of that, and the team will have to get that into the box to check. The diffuser straight looks pretty good. Sometimes when these cars go in backwards, everything's designed to crash forward, so that can be a difference as we see the Grasser car of Jordan Pepper with the fastest lap time so far. Not Jordan in the car anymore, so they've done a driver change there and got Enxler in, and he's ready to go. Tyres have come off the car into the tyre oven. Teams have to decide how long is this red flag going to be. If it's 3-4 minutes, we leave the tyres on the car. Any longer than that, they start to lose temperature. Makes it harder for the driver to get straight on it and up to speed. So they're going to have to make the call of when to bring those tyres out of the tyre ovens, out the back of the garages, run them through and put them on. And I think that's going to be any time soon because the Aston Martin has just entered pit lane. WRT think it's even sooner, and they're going to wait at pit exit for a green flag.
And 32 BMW, Charles Weerts will take the car out. So he has replaced Kelvin van der Linde, who didn't get many minutes in the car, did he? He briefly went fastest, ended up second fastest, but Charles Weerts ready to go. The Rutronic Porsche, number 96, comes down the pit lane. Klaus Graf lets the car go, and 96 is good to join in a session that's going to restart in 10 seconds' time. So the clock ticks. The teams are told effectively on short notice. One car that we briefly looked at before the red flag was Ben Green's Ferrari, number 14, another of the Emil Frey racing cars that he shares with Konsta Lappalainen, and he's up to 5th. Ben Green and Konsta Lappalainen won at Hockenheim last year, you might recall, in Sprint Cup. Right, out they go. 16 3/4 minutes effectively remain, that's all.
Yeah, it goes so quickly, doesn't it? So we've really got time for 8 flyers by the time they finish this outlap. How many of them will be compromised by traffic? And I think that was really WRT's idea of Weerts, is at least get him to pit exit so he's got some clear track. The problem is, in 80 seconds, he's coming back round and some of these cars will still be leaving pit lane. That's the problem.
You can see in the back there the car that's fastest so far, the number 63 Lamborghini. The time done by Jordan Pepper, who's with Bryn.
Well, Jordan, you've been here once before and it wasn't a great weekend for you, so it's nice to start out in the way you have. What can you tell us about the car, how much faster it can go?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, what a place, right? Brands Hatch reminds me so much of the tracks back home in South Africa. It's old school, and I'm so glad it's still on the calendar. I hope it stays forever. It was pure joy out there. I mean, you know, tracks like this, when we come from Paul Ricard to here, it's such a contrast from like a super track limity racetrack to this. and it was just a pure joy. I mean, it's a shame about the red flag because my running got cut short, obviously such a tight schedule, but no, it was good. I mean, car was directly in the window, which is important on such a compact schedule considering we got quali this afternoon. A bit of fine tuning now. Luca's obviously going to have a couple laps and then we see how we end up.
Yeah, Jordan Pepper knows the car inside out. Luca Engschler knows Lamborghinis, but he's new to the Grasser Racing team this year and admitted pre-season that all of this wouldn't really be possible without a bit of Lamborghini help. That yes, he brought the Licky Moly sponsorship, but Lamborghini have picked up Luca, who had a huge accident at Macau last year and rattled his legs around in the cab quite a lot. So he was on the grid on race day, not with a car, but on crutches and with bandages, and said, yeah, I'm okay, but it did do him a bit more damage than he really was prepared to let on. So it's good to see him back. If you saw the pictures, you'll know just what an impact it was last year at Macau for him.
It's one of the few tracks that feels open and safe, probably, Brands Hatch, compared to Macau. So, yeah, anyone that hustles a GT3 car around there, then fair play. And yes, Luca's got to get used to the Lamborghini. Obviously knows the Audi as well, and very similar cars underneath. Slightly different aero balance will be the main thing he has to get on top of. But Jordan Pepper showing him that the car can do it. It's now over to him to be able to do the same as we watch the Boots and VDS Mercedes and Maxime Martin come across the line. 14 minutes remaining. Maxime will have a lot of experience around here, but learning the Mercedes still. They had a pretty tough Paul Ricard, I think, when you look at how strong the Mercedes was. This number 9 car wasn't quite on the money, so they would have regrouped last couple of weeks, gone back to base and really strip the car down, check everything's okay. Where do they need to go setup-wise? The drivers need to change. So this is why it's a team sport. When it goes bad, it isn't just one person. You have to regroup as a collective and find out what you can do. The balance of the car from the outside looks great. We go on board now. How does it look on board? Shifting through the gears, 5th gear, and then suddenly we start to get up to speed real quick. 6th gear, down the hill. Interestingly, moving to the inside the circuit, not really using the maximum width of the car to the circuit edge there. Interestingly, I've not really seen that. Maybe a bump that has developed in the last 12 months that I'm not accustomed to. And you can see the speed rising all the way. Short, sharp break now, off, in, still carrying over 140 kilometers an hour through Sheen, all the way out to the outside there. So balance of the car looks good. What's the lap time going to be by the end of it? There's just one thing I can never get with Brands Hatch. I haven't stopped talking. We've already done a lap. It just goes around so quickly. Vermeulen there in the Ferrari, purple sector 1, fastest ever, and we pick him up through the last corner now, handling the bump much better than the McLaren.
Sandy Mitchell to the top of the times now, another Lamborghini by 22 thousandths of a second. Thierry Vermeulen, absolute best, personal best, absolute best, fastest lap time. He has done a 1:23.178. He goes 0.253 of a second quicker than anybody else. So Ferrari, Lamborghini, BMW, it's all quite Italian suddenly out of the top 3. There's the car that was fastest. Luca Engschler has taken over from Jordan Pepper. A little bit squirrely coming out of Druids. Luca Engschler did race here last year, but they're getting slightly crossed up as in the pit lane drivers study the data. The session has only got 12 more minutes to go, and now you can see that even though it's only, in quotes, free practice, people still want to be fastest.
Yeah, that was a lap from Vermeulen. That was 3 purple sectors, so he was the fastest in all of them. And the gap to second, as you said, 0.235 of a second is the biggest gap all the way down the field until we get to the 29th to 28th position gap. So that shows you what a dominant lap it was. Here we look at the Stella Motorsport car down at the moment in 23rd place of Le Mans, and it's looking good, that car, and it sounds even better than it looks as well. Amazing sounding American V8 in the back of that Stella Motorsport Chevy.
Yeah, we need that on the Mustang to get together, don't we, for a proper fight on track and a proper fight for your ears coming out of Hawthorns. If you're in the UK watching this, I know it's a busy weekend of motorsport, but tickets are still, of course, available for tomorrow. In 2 weeks' time, the Sprint Cup goes to Zandvoort, which isn't a million miles away from the UK, and if you're in mainland Europe, then come and join, because Zandvoort is another really cool track with these 2 new banked sections to give something else to the circuit. Cars always look great around there. GT4 will be there as well at Zandvoort, and GB3 single-seaters, so some good racing to look forward to. So come and join for that if you want. And all this building up to, don't forget, our big weekend, end of June, CrowdStrike, 24 hours of Spa. If you've never been to that before, first of all, why not? Secondly, what book your tickets now because it is just an outstanding weekend. Right, we have got just over 10 minutes to go. Sandy Mitchell's car has gone back the way of Hugo Cook. So Sandy, given a few minutes, just haul it up the order, make sure he's happy, and then Hugo Cook can get back on with the job of learning car, circuit, and getting happy with everything.
Yeah, and they probably were running live onboard camera system there, so Hugo would be able to watch live onboard of that car, see what Sandy was doing, what differences there were. Was he using first gear at Druids, for example, at the hairpin, or was he second? And then also the delta time will be reset in the car, so now Hugo will be able to see live how much in front or behind is he from Sandy, and that's a great tool to be able to learn. Vince Ambril now getting in. So interesting, he's only going to get, well, it's 10 minutes now, so by the time he leaves, it's going to be 9 minutes, and by the time he finishes his out lap, it's going to be 7 minutes, so he's going to have time for 4 laps. That's all Vince Ambril has done. So Rivera there obviously wanted 20 minutes, get the car in a window and go from there, but that really illustrates how hard it is for these drivers to get up to speed around here.
Alessio Rivera, last year's endurance champion, but making a Sprint Cup debut this weekend. Seems almost perverse to say that, but it is true enough, as that car is 20th, and while it's been in the pits, it's been elbowed down the order a touch.
Yeah, I'm surprised how low that car is when you consider it's a Ferrari that's fastest. So Rivera 1.2 seconds off pole position at the moment. That's something that we never say. So I wonder if there is a slight issue with that car. They've gone the wrong way with a setup, or is a problem they need to address after this session with the car. But that's a car we're used to seeing at the sharp end, as we see Hugo Cook finish his out lap now. See the 112 car putting the skates on, so they're going to put that Arthur Rouge in that car like we were talking about earlier. He's down in 22nd position after a strong Ricard. I would have thought they would have expected to be maybe inside the top 10 would have been their goal, but at the moment the fastest McLaren is actually all the way down in 11th of Adam Smalley. So at the moment McLaren not in the window they need to be performance-wise with either Garage 59 or CSA Racing. Just watching the car get ready to go again. Are they making a setup change, or are they just looking at the car to potentially just get it on its way as soon as they can? Looking here at the Emil Frey Ferrari car number 14 hustling hard behind the Lamborghini. Again, these bumps are really starting to unsettle the car, aren't they, in places, and Lapalainen there. Obviously some good Scandinavian car control, but that will be definitely coming there. As, well, that Lamborghini was wide through turn 1. You can see the dust being kicked up, flash of their headlights there from the Ferrari, just saying, I'm here and I want to come past you if that's possible, in a more sort of direct and rude approach.
With 8 minutes to go. Number 14 then, Konsta Lapalainen taking over from Ben Green. Did improve last time, 1:23.8, and he still can't really find a way past that Lamborghini, which is taking its lines, as a driver is entitled to do, but it's not helping. That's Baptiste Moulin, I think, at the wheel. No, sorry, Baptiste Moulin's the... Yes, it is Baptiste Moulin's car, isn't it? Number 19, it is the Lamborghini. Right, meanwhile, Sebastian Neugaard, who's been switching around with Leonardo Moncini, he's now got traffic, gets past Gilles Stadsbader's BMW coming into Stirling. Stadsbader backed out of that completely, let him go. And Moncini then starts to get the tyres up to temperature. Then Moulin fastest has pitted, and 7 minutes and change on the clock now.
Yeah, it's gone very quickly this session, isn't it? It's disappears with the 30 car now box as well. And when you see a car stuck behind another car here, you saw how quickly Lapalainen caught up. But really, if you've got anything less than half a second a lap advantage on pace over that car in front of you, it's very hard to overtake round here. You need a big performance delta or a big move, a big lunge, and there are a few opportunities, and we saw a lot of good overtakes last year, and every corner is possible to overtake at, but when the brake zones are so short because of the fast flowing nature out the back, it just means that it's harder to get the job done and get it done cleanly. As we see one of the Temto Audis coming to a stop, the 99 car up in the air, practice tyre change, didn't go on particularly smoothly, that one. 17 seconds is going to be the goal for these guys to get all 4 done, and that first one not going on cleanly would have lost a second and a half straight away, and then that is all pit time, and then there's a problem on the front left as well there, so this hasn't been the slickest, but that's why you practice.
True enough, Mauro Engel has taken over from Lucas Auer in number 48 Mercedes, and that car is 9th currently in the times. Racetrack becoming ever more dirty. It's only the second session of the morning, but it's been the longer of the 2 sessions, of course, but with more people running wide and bringing dirt onto the road, that catches people out who go off and therefore bring dirt onto the road, and it all cycles on. Engel goes fastest then now with 2 personal bests and an absolute in the last sector. That puts him 33 thousandths up on Thierry Vermeulen. So you've got Mercedes AMG from Ferrari, 2 Lamborghinis, then a BMW, then an Audi, then a McLaren, then another Mercedes AMG in the top 8. Nice variety up there.
Yeah, really good, isn't it? And it was a great lap from Engel there, purple in sector 3, so fastest of anyone. Car looking really well balanced and poised, and it's exactly what you want from as a driver around here, is a car that is predictable. You don't want a Larry car, you don't want too much rotation where the rear of the car is too loose, and it just means you have to just second guess what the car's going to do. When it's like this and it's in a window, you're able just to commit, chuck the car in, feel the grip, and then get back on the throttle as early as possible to start the speed going. As we look at Adam Smalley coming through the last corner, 2 green sectors. He was outside the top 10 last time I looked. Now he's 7th. Can he climb even higher? He would definitely be experienced round here. Up 1 place to 6th place. Good luck, Adam Smalley.
Number 24, which is the Chevrolet, has been given a stop-and-go penalty until the end for abuse of track limits. It's got to such a scale that Niels Wittich, the race director, has decided that Mathis Liesmont is benched, effectively. And if that's a way of getting the message through, then it's kind of tough love, really.
Yeah, and for a big car, you would have thought it would stay on the track easier, wouldn't you? Because it's just keeping 1 tyre on at all times when it's half the width of this 9-metre wide Brands Hatch circuit. Paul Ricard, for example, can be 15 metres wide in places. So it shows you how tight and narrow it is in places. But yeah, race director there, calling it pretty tough, but sometimes tough love's the best way to educate these drivers.
True enough, and the session's got just over 4 minutes to go. There is Arthur Rougier then in number 112, McLaren. He has taken that car over from James Kell. It's down to 24th, though. So at the moment, you've got Mauro Engel, the fastest outright. In gold, it is Thierry Vermeulen, who is the fastest. And then in silver, number 99, the Alex Arca Ezequiel Perez Companc Audi. Ezequiel this year going away from running his own team at Mad Panda Motorsport, just a driver, and getting rid of a lot of the hassle and the headaches that go with that. And another car off at the exit of Westfield towards Sheen Curve. It is one of the Audis. It is number 26 that has clobbered the wall. That is Laurens Leclerc, the reigning Alpine Europa Cup champion. The car's got a damaged rear wing, as you can see. He's also damaged the trackside furniture, but the car is at least moving.
Yeah, he would want to get out of there. That would have been a horrible place to be sat. I expect he's run a bit wide out of T6 at Westfield, like you said, and then the car just goes onto the grass and you're a passenger there. And luckily, MSV, the owners of Brands Hatch, the rear wing fully detached there, and the pylon bent. He's doing a good job of getting out of the way, but even with the rear wing still in, that would be quite a horrible feeling, driving the car back like that. But yeah, luckily MSV have invested in these foam blocks and they're high energy absorbing, so that's how that car is able to hit the wall and drive off. Yes, it's damaged, but without that would have been a whole heap worse. So yeah, look how wide he is, high speed, and just grazes it, doesn't he? And I actually think maybe the second hit, the foam bit, but if it wasn't for the foam, there might have been enough space where he wouldn't have hit anything, ironically. But that would have been a scary wild ride as he bumps across the Kent grass there.
Yeah, certainly very, very high speed. And the Audi pits then. Also fair play from race control, because seeing a car on the grass, there was no panic red flag. They let the driver try and work out if the car was going to be able to be brought back. They gave him the time to do that, and therefore the session can carry on. They're the team trying to get the car into its box. That's it for the session, because it's only 2 minutes away. So they're trying to get the car in. They can start work on it straight away. And Laurens Leclerc, here for the first time, now has to sort of accept that that was his mistake. Let's have another look in slow motion.
Yeah, he's already a car width too wide on the exit, and then there's just not the grip to get back on the tarmac, and it spins around almost because the front right was still touching, and then watch this graze as he just clips it here, which then rotates the car back round, which then fires him in for a second time into the barrier here, slightly harder. So he's done all 4 corners of hit the barrier at some point, and that isn't what Santalok need in this short turnaround between this first free practice and pre-qualifying in just over an hour and a half's time.
90 seconds and counting then of the session to go. Laurens Leclerc shakes his head and accepts that that was, his mistake, but it's all part and parcel of learning for the silver graded drivers.
Yeah, there's, again, just no room for error, so that would have literally been 2 kilometres an hour faster than his previous lap through there, and going, yeah, there's a bit more on the table, I'm going to take it. Turns out probably his first assessment was correct, and there wasn't any more there, and he just tries to damage the door for good measure too.
Yeah, you can see the frustration, can't you? Shakes his head, slams the door, and he knows that he's made a mistake. He knows that he's given the team work to do, and look, like the damage assessor, the mechanic there taking photographs of the damage. Jordan Pepper brings his car back into the pit lane. He had taken over briefly from Luca Engschler, but that's pretty much it, because with 30+ seconds of the session to go, they're virtually done. Maro Engel then, he's going to round out the session presumably as the fastest. I can't see anybody else in the sectors looking absolute dynamite, although 96 Porsche, Patrick Niederhauser, is still hustling along. So the first of the 2 Rutronic racing cars, the one in the Pro Cup, looked racy, comes out of the right of Westfield through Dingle Dell. Saw that foam block sitting on the grass, not really a hazard, and the race director content to leave that there because the checkered flag is imminent. Niederhauser will take the flag at the end of this lap.
Yeah, and it's been a fast session. I'm just looking at the timing screen, sorry, as you passed me there, just trying to work out who I think's not going to be happy, and I think this Porsche will be one of them, down in 12th position. Are they going to improve this lap? Potentially 2 green sectors. Where can Niederhauser get himself up to as he crosses the line? He does go up to 8th, so an unhappy 12th to a more positive 8th position. I think that is one car that's probably going to end on a slight higher than they were expecting.
In the end, the magic number under a second, 13 cars, which is still pretty impressive. Of course, when we got the pros in, they just sort of upped the pace, stretched the margins a little bit. But at the end of the day, at the end of that session at least, Maro Engel is fastest. A quick reminder that it's a busy day for the teams, because although both races are tomorrow, pre-qualifying is at 12:10, so not even 2 hours away, and then qualifying at 4:30. So a lot of activity today, and we've touched on the point, drivers have touched on the point, you don't want damage.
No, you can't afford damage. That's the other way of looking at it. As Villagomez, 2 green sectors as well. Before that, we actually saw Jamie Day back in the Comtu car, so they got that Aston back out, which was good for them. Villagomez up to 17th from 21st on that last lap. So track getting faster, drivers getting faster, driver change practices going on here. The sister Santalot car, so the car that was in the wall as well. So you can see how hard these guys have to work. They make those wheels and tyres look light, but they can be anything up to 12.5 kilos each, depending on the car, and they're slinging them on like they're made out of plastic. So, and then the car will drop down to the floor when it's all done, and then it would carry on into the race come tomorrow.
So that is our first look at GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS Sprint Cup for 2025. Free practice done, and the fastest car at the end, a Mercedes AMG, courtesy of the efforts of the redoubtable Maro Engel, who of course used to race here in British Formula 3 many, many years ago. Lucas Auer did a few laps, but Maro Engel the fastest from Thierry Vermeulen. Sandy Mitchell third ahead of Jordan Pepper, and then Calvin van der Linde, Louis Pret rounding out the top 6. The Winwood Racing Mercedes fastest overall. In gold, it was the efforts of Thierry Vermeulen to be second fastest overall, fastest in class, and only 33 thousandths shy of Maro Engel. As far as silver is concerned, Alex Arca did the time in the Trezor Attempto Audi, Attempto Racing, the family team. Arkin, his father, the man behind that very successful squad. He shares the car, does Alex, with Ezekiel Perez Companc, but the time done by Alex good enough early on to keep that up at the pointy end to be fastest in class. But fastest overall, it's Maro Engel. 30 cars then, making it a crowded circuit, a busy circuit. That one red flag when Kobe Powell's second-generation rallycrosser lived up to his origins and put the car off the road, but no real damage done. The only real damage, I suppose, Lawrence Leclerc's rear wing, and a bit of cosmetic damage to the corners after he bounced his way from the recticel barriers up at Dingle Dell. So the cars next on track for the pre-qualifying session, just after 12:10 local time, and then just after 4:30 we'll have qualifying underway, as long as the timetable runs as it should today. For now though, a happy Maro Engel and Lucas Auer likewise. They were a little bit frustrated at Paul Ricard with the pace of the Mercedes AMG. It was almost there, but just not quite quick enough. They got pole position on the amalgamated combination of times, but in the race they were just a little bit breathless. But starting potentially from up near the front, that is certainly going to help when we get to racing tomorrow. Lucas Auer and Maro Engel. Let's hear from them then. They're with Bryn Lucas.
Well, gents, what do they say? Always get through without any damage. That's the first thing. And to get the quickest time is very, very rewarding. What are your thoughts, first of all, Lucas?
I think, as you mentioned, I think most important is to get a clean session, which we did. Now we will analyze, try to improve, and see to gain even more time.
Trying to improve is always the name of the game, isn't it? You set the fastest time out there, Maro, and where have you identified, where do you believe you can get better, quicker out on track?
Well, it's free practice one, obviously. We're just trying to dial in as everyone is, and I'm sure we need to take steps forward for qualifying because the lap times in qualifying will be quicker.
You won here last year in one of the races too, so obviously the eye is on that prize. Is it a realistic prize at this stage? I'm sure you're going to say yes.
It's for sure, it's our aim, it's why we're here, but it's too early to say, you know. For sure the competition is strong, but equally we're ready and we're looking forward to it.
Part one done, big tick, well done.
So congratulations for now, at least, to Maro Engel and Lucas Auer, who take the fastest time, and just 33 thousandths in it, 13 cars within a second. It's all been a very frantic morning, and the Mercedes AMG for now, the fastest car, but we'll see whether that prevails over the course of the weekend. For now, though, Maro Engel is the driver to beat at Brands Hatch. Let's look at the highlights then of free practice under a cloudless sky. It began with the silver drivers hopping and skipping their way out on circuit, including Louis Pret, who had that big moment coming down through clearways. Also, Maxime Mouston ran really, really wide at paddock in the Paradigm BMW, and Alex Arca had this little moment coming out of Sheen Curve. But other than the on-track limit warning, there was no major drama. The dramas would come later on when Kobe Powell's had an off in his Aston at paddock and dropped into the gravel, and Laurens Leclerc put his Audi off the road up at Sheen Curve. Once we got to the halfway point of the hour and the pro drivers were allowed out, then the session took on a rather different feel because it got busier, it got quicker. Thierry Vermeulen put himself up to the top of the times, taking over from Chris Lulham, but then this drama put Laurens Leclerc's Audi off the road and ultimately into the pit lane. And Maro Engel went fastest, so Mercedes AMG topped the times at the end of free practice. Pre-qualifying next in just under an hour and a half's time. We'll see you later.